Good morning, everybody, dear participants. Welcome to our webinar on the preliminary market consultation, which is part of our series of webinars on introducing the innovation procurement guidance. We are very happy that there are so many people registered for our webinar, almost 370 people, which confirms the interest for this topic. And we really look forward for this very interesting presentation and the discussion on this topic. I would like to recall some housekeeping rules before we really start the discussion. The session is available through web streaming only. Please note that could be a slight delay of 45 seconds. To submit questions and interact with our speakers, please use Slido. You have received all the instructions regarding Slido by mail. Please, when you write your question, indicate to whom the question is addressed and also the question itself. We will read the questions and invite the speakers to answer. So please try to be short. We'll have to be rigorous regarding timekeeping. And also all the other questions which remain unanswered will be collected and answered through our LinkedIn group. The objective of our seminar today is really to highlight the benefit of engaging with the market. This is very clear. It's very important in dynamic markets due to technology change, to economic change, to market change. And so we will walk you through market consultation process and provide you some of the tools which are used to engage with the market. We will also present very relevant best practices that we have been looking around across the EU. Today's meeting is divided into three parts. We will have an opening speech by Katarina Napton-Wirlich, our head of unit from DG GROW C2. We will have the presentation of our speakers and then a QA session, which will allow you to interact with our speakers. So, my name is Ivo Locatelli. I'm senior expert at the DG GROW C2. DG GROW is responsible for internal market, industry, entrepreneurship, and SMEs. Our distinguished speakers are Josephine Hint, which comes from ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, and she's the main author of a guide on market dialogue and dialogue events with the suppliers. Then we have Stephane Conti, head of the department, SMEs, Sourcing and Innovation, Procurement Directorate of the French government. The department has published a guide in 2019, which is called Operational Sourcing. And this guide has been also very useful for us. We have been inspired with regards to certain templates and the questionnaire, which is in the annex of our innovation procurement guidance, which was published in June of this year. Finally, we have Mauro Drauli, head of unit, procurement strategies and market innovation at AGID, the agency responsible for digitization in Italy. Before we start, and also to ice break, we always launch a short poll, a brief poll, so I invite you to switch to Slido. The poll will be appearing on your screen soon, and you will see a number of questions regarding the topic of today's webinar. So what is your experience in terms of preliminary market consultation? And there are a number of options for you to reply. Just 1 second, apparently. Here we see the questions. So we will wait a little bit of time to see how you answer to this short poll. It's starting. The objective of this poll is really to see what is your experience, whether you have organized one or more, whether you have never organized a preliminary market consultation, whether you rather have an interest which relates to academic and other. or whether you are just a supplier. So far, there is a very high predominance in the first option. So it's more an academic legal point of view, but only 25 answers. I hope that you answer quickly so that we can move. So we can go ahead and introduce with our webinar, and I introduce Katarina Napton-Wirlich, which is the head of unit of DG Grow C2, for her opening speech, and we will comment the results of the poll afterwards. You can continue so to answer to the poll while Katarina gives her speech.
Yes, good morning. I'm very happy to be able to introduce you to today's webinar. It seems to be seen. I should move a bit in the room. For all of you, innovation does not need an advertising campaign anymore. We are faced with unprecedented challenges. We all know about them. What we do about them is important. But they also give us unprecedented opportunities that allow us to preserve the future for our children and grandchildren and to help them create a better future. So innovation is not a choice, it's a necessity. And it has the potential to address our most stringent societal challenges and turn them into an opportunity. This is the driving force behind modernizing our administrations and improving our citizens' quality of life. So public procurement of innovation, at the crossroads of all that, should become common practice and an essential element of any innovation policy mix. But to be able to use the potential of innovation procurement, public administrations need to acquire new skills and management practices, most of them at least. And towards this goal, we published in June 2021 an updated guidance on innovation procurement. I'm sure you all know it by heart. You know it better than the alphabet and the basics of mathematics. So I won't tell you anything new anymore. But in this event, in this series of events we are starting today, we are launching webinars on lighthouse topics developed in our guidance. These topics, for example, IPRs, risk management, approaching innovation ecosystems, have been chosen by you, by your needs as expressed during our previous webinars. So you're responsible for our choice. I hope you made a wise one, but I'm absolutely convinced that you did. In addition, in a constant quest to help you, we went one step further, and we've just published 2 new brochures on, first, how to choose the most appropriate procedure, and specifically on the innovation partnership that creates headaches for quite a few practitioners. They will be available at the end of October in all EU languages. But today, we are focusing on preliminary market consultations. Our guidance has a section dedicated to this topic with a step-by-step guide. And I would highlight here especially the questionnaire and the invitation letters as 2 very important steps. You all know that preliminary market consultations are optional under the directives, but they are possible. And for innovation procurement, they are fundamental to addressing the inherent asymmetry of knowledge between a public administration and the market, so that they help buyers to familiarize themselves with the market actors and the state of the art to calibrate their specifications to the market potential. At the same time, market consultations signal to the market that there is public demand. Thereby, we hope incentivize companies, especially small and small innovative ones, to innovative in a direction that might meet the public demand's needs, to increase their trust also in doing business with the public sector. Innovations are the result of interactions always amongst various actors in the innovation ecosystem. Researchers first, manufacturers, SMEs and startups, accelerators, the market. And public buyers are an important part of the market. And preliminary market consultations may offer an environment where this first interaction between such actors can take place. But tapping into the potential of preliminary market consultations requires especially two things. First, really the new paradigm we've been talking about for a while, a shift of focus from compliance to value-driven procurement. It is in full swing, but we're definitely not at the end of it. By doing that, we always have to remain faithful to our principles, especially equal treatment, non-discrimination, and transparency. So this webinar is also about how to marry the new paradigm with the compliance with our principles. Second, we need new skills and capabilities. We need a new management practice of procurement. For some of you, the webinar today will be a first step into the topic of preliminary market consultation. Less apparently from the Slido as I've seen it before I started, as practitioners, but as advisors, as researchers how it could actually work. We hope that it will provide you with the knowledge sought and the impulse needed to take further steps and make preliminary market consultations really a common practice in innovation, but also for just basic normal purchases where at the beginning you do not think it might be an innovative solution. It might still appear, one might still appear from market consultations. For others who already have the experience of systematically consulting markets, we hope we give you an opportunity to clarify some questions you might have, to have doubts that you may raise, to have last questions answered. I'm convinced that no matter your expectations, our webinar will be a source of inspiration and a help to you all. It's in this spirit that I look forward to the presentations and especially to all your questions. And I wish you a wonderful 2 hours ahead. Thank you.
Many thanks, Katarina, for these inspiring words, which really touch upon the key elements of preliminary market consultation, marrying really compliance, legal compliance, and the importance of understanding what's going on in the market, and also the importance of carrying out preliminary market consultation also beyond simply when you are looking for innovation, because there can be very interesting surprises coming from the market. So let's come back to our poll. We got 40 replies. There is half of the replies which concerns an interest, express an interest on PMC in general, while the rest is shared between those which have never organized and have organized one or more preliminary market consultations. I think that now we can move ahead. These results of this poll indicates that there is a lot to learn and to discuss on this topic. I would like to invite Josephine for her first presentation and to start with the presentation from our distinguished speakers. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ivo, for inviting me and for diving deep into the role of preliminary market consultation. And I can only add to the words that Katharina outlined that market consultation has to become the norm. And I hope that my presentation can make a small contribution here. First of all, I invite you to stick with this picture just for a moment. Because for me in my work, working with public authorities across Europe for ECLAI, local governments for sustainability, really we understand market engagement really as a process, as many steps that need to be taken. And I do want to invite you to look at it very practically. And to, if you allow me this reference, being in the mountains, it's kind of similar. It's not an easy terrain. A lot can go wrong. It does feel risky sometimes, or there's a lot of uncertainty, and really one needs to navigate well to get to the top. So if you look at this compared to market engagement, really a lot of procurers face barriers to take these steps. There are a lot of worries with questions such as, what if no one responds or attends our market dialogue event? We don't have the capacity to really do it well? Or what if we cross legal boundaries? Or what if we receive negative feedback to our plans? What do we do then? So these are all very valid questions. I want to emphasize that really in our work with public procurers and public authorities across Europe, we see these concerns as not an excuse, but still something to work with and work through. So take these concerns, but don't use them as a stopping point, but rather to work through them and actually, find answers to them. And so really the two main things that we identified is the legal worries and then the question mark about how to actually
Sorry,
engage.
Josephine, to interrupt you just 1 second. We have a small problem with your slides, which are not being shared, apparently. So we will try to fix it, or maybe you can try to reshare it again.
Okay, how does it
It's
look
okay now.
Perfect. So these are the questions that I was talking about earlier, so you didn't miss a lot of things. Only to emphasize that really the two main worries that we identify is around the legal situation and then how to actually deliver a market dialogue. And so just to briefly outline the legal worries, this is clearly regulated through the EU GPP directives. And to emphasize here is really contracting authorities may conduct market consultations with a view to preparing the procurement and informing economic operators of their procurement plans. So this is clearly regulated and there is a solid basis. I think there's a problem that someone else is starting sharing the screen and then it drops back from my screen. Okay, so and we can dive deeper into the legalities later on in the session, and I very much look forward to that. So let's take a second to establish why a dialogue between procurers and suppliers is actually relevant. And you're all here in this webinar, which is amazing. So I can already tell you know why it's important. But perhaps just to get on the same page, what could we possibly achieve as a procurer, as a public authority through a dialogue in an environment that it is already tight on budget and time? Why do all this extra work? And for us, it's really about understanding product service readiness to obtain new ideas for your next tender, to increase the trust and credibility with your suppliers, to communicate your long-term strategy or even midterm, short-term activities, also regarding your social and environmental targets or needs for innovation in a crisis content, for instance. To also collaborate with other public buyers that are interested in doing similar procurements, and to perhaps together establish platforms for innovation in Europe. And I think most importantly is really to engage in a discussion and in a consultation with industry to understand really how to move the needle forward together. And of course, this is all very challenging and has to be kept realistic. In one market dialogue event, you won't be able to solve all the challenges or bring the innovation that is really needed. However, if you understand it as one part of a wider process, then doing a dialogue event, for instance, is really key and can be very much straightforward. Now we get to the part of how to actually deliver a market dialogue event. And at ICLE, as Ivo mentioned already in my introduction, we wrote a step-by-step guidance, actually as part of a European funded project. However, the guidance is very much general and transferable between sectors and between purposes. So it can be targeted at social, environmental, but also innovation needs. And we wrote a step-by-step guidance, and I will take you through those steps in a moment. And in addition, I want to point out that we have this legal framework annex for you to dive deeper as well when it comes to the European framework enabling really market consultation. So for the first step, we need to take a step back because the first step your needs. And here it's really about, before you think about methods or your audience, to think about questions such as, what do you want to achieve through your market engagement? How would a successful event look like? What kind of information are you looking for? So it's very important to clarify that first. Next, I want you to understand kind of this step as being collaborative and putting together a team. Really, market engagement events are a team sport. And from our experience, your team should definitely consist of the procurer or contract manager to be in charge of the planned procurement or product category, then to involve the head of procurement to give a strategic perspective, to provide support, and also to leverage political buy-in depending on the scope of your event. In addition, I really want to highlight the importance of having administrative support, because a market dialogue event will have 1,001 tasks ranging from invitations, from publicizing the event, from arranging the venue or the software, and to build the agenda. There's really a lot to do. And then finally, as part of the core team, involve your sustainability or innovation advisor, really to make strategic connections to the wider goals of your city or national government even, and to really connect the dots well. A further recommendation from us is to consider hiring or collaborating with an event facilitator, really someone who understands the flow of the event, who can take this burden sometimes off of your shoulders. So you, for instance, as a procurer, can really focus on the content at the event. And then to consider also inviting an external topic expert. The next step is about methods. And here I brought 2 of suitable methods. There are many more. I'm sure there's also a lot of guidance out there. The first one we called catalog of questions. This will take place before the event, actually. We suggest to do this in a way where you send out a briefing document that includes potentially the criteria you want to discuss, as well as a set of questions you're planning to focus on at the event. Why is that important? Well, so attendees will have the time to prepare, actually, to really add value. Next method I brought with me today is the idea of roundtables. It's not new, however, for market dialogue, really key. And this would obviously take place at the event or in an online event as breakout rooms. Here you have the opportunity to create rooms or tables with multiple hosts in rounds of 20 minutes where suppliers would move from room to room or from table to table. And this is really about enabling an in-depth discussion and to have a variety of partners to discuss with. Now, there are 3 steps that are directly about the event. So before, we encourage you to really think about the space or software you want to use, to really publish it openly and widely. This is also about enabling transparency, very important, and to do a test run. Then a few items to have in mind for during the event, really about facilitation. This is key to really stay focused on the goal of the event, to also really capture what is being discussed, and to also arrange for a proper closing where your intentions can be communicated again very clearly, and to, for instance, outline that this event is part of a wider process. And finally, we included the step. This might be intuitive, but it's very important to emphasize that after the event is before the event, and to consider this step as part of a learning process where it's about debriefing, maybe a week after the event took place, to formulate your lessons learned and to perhaps even publish a press release about your event, or to post about your experience in relevant fora, to exchange with other procurers and to pass on your experience, right? However, I do want to also give you a few perspectives on market dialogues, not from me, not from ICLE, but from actual procurers. So we worked with the municipality of Haarlem in the Netherlands and Barcelona City Council. And from Haarlem, what they really mirrored to us about market dialogue: expect the unexpected, be prepared that the market dialogue event will sweep you off your feet, and afterwards your initial approach to an upcoming procurement will look different. So here, clearly the sense of innovation that can be sourced from a dialogue event, even if unintended. And from Barcelona, to participate in international networks, to see how things are going forward in other countries. Cross-country knowledge sharing gives valuable insights into methods, tools, and procedures. So here, also the invitation to open up your dialogue events to other procurers from other public authorities to enable this kind of shared learning across Europe. And finally, just coming back to the sense of this mountain metaphor that I shared at the start, just stick with me for a moment and imagine what could happen if you get to the top. You have taken all these steps and you see a new horizon. You see the next peak you want to climb. You're now stronger and can inspire others from your experience. And perhaps you were able to really build new connections with your suppliers and resellers, perhaps other actors as well, and to engage in a meaningful conversation. And with this, I do invite you to connect, to exchange, and also understand that whether you're a beginner or you're advanced or you're just starting out, you're not alone. There are plenty more public authorities embarking on this journey and are very eager to share experience. So thank you very much for your attention and for the invitation, and I look forward to your questions.
Many thanks, Josephine. It was very, very clear and very interesting. I'm sure there will be a lot of interaction and question afterwards. I will now pass the floor to Stephane Conti for his presentation.
Sorry, I just put my sound off. Good morning, everyone. Ivo, can you tell me if it's okay with the screen? Before I'm just starting.
Maybe eventually, I think if you can show them in full screen, that would be better. In full slideshow, thanks.
Yes, sorry. It should be now in full screen. That's okay?
Go ahead, thanks.
Okay, thanks. So good morning, everyone. So I'm Stephane from the French state. And my mission for the next 10 or 15 minutes is just to highlight some very interesting point, I guess, about how sourcing is important for I would say supplier and for the procurer and the procurement. Let's start with a couple of points and bullet points which has already been introduced somewhere. And just to highlight, I would say the benefits for the procurement to conduct a preliminary market, or what could be called as well a sourcing operation. It has been already said, it's the first, I would say the first goal and the first objective is to better know what the market and the suppliers are able to provide and to identify the existing and the newcomers on the market. I mean, say the big players, the small players, and just to make sure that you will be able to find the best compromise between what the supplier's market is able to provide and your requirement and specification. The calibration of that on that two demand and offers is of course very important to organize your consultation phase and make sure that you will be
Stephane, sorry to interrupt you. You should be moving your slides yourself just to be sure that this is the case.
But
because they are not.
I am on the slide 2. All right, I'm should be on the slide 2. I don't know if you are seeing the slide 2.
No.
Okay. Can I give you the end? I would say
yes,
of the presentation. Maybe.
We take control. Thanks. Just okay, sorry for this technical hitch. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. No worries.
That's it. So go ahead. Thanks.
That's perfect. That's the slide 2. So just as a short refresh, I would say better understand and better know what the markets is able to provide. Adapt and calibrate your expectation and your requirement to the market ability to provide. Of course, maybe start engaging discussion and co-construction or co-adaptation of solution where the market is not able to provide what you are expecting, by the way. We are here in the area of innovation, and we come back on that later on. And there is a very interesting benefit that is given by a sourcing operation is to reduce and mitigate the risk for you during the tendering process, because I would say you will be sure that you will have some answer during your tender and your consultation, which is quite a good point. And also, I would say secure your own services, meaning as your procurement job is to make sure that the procurement consultation will lead and will lead properly and will be conducted properly. That will be also a risk mitigation for yourself. That some, I would say, some bullet point that could be highlighted the benefits for sourcing operation. And to me, I would say it's not something quite surprising. That's exactly and basically what is expected now from the procurement officer. I would say we must be able to provide the best knowledge to our organization of what the market is able to provide. But we will switch, if you don't mind, to the next slide, the slide 3. That's to me that bullet point is just what is above the surface. What is below the surface is much more interesting because here we are speaking about strategic dimension and strategic perspective of the preliminary preliminary consultation that has been introduced at the very beginning of the show. We are here as a procurement officer. We have the power to make things change. And I just highlight there a couple of questions which has already been introduced. To me, I would say, how can we be? How can be ambitious if we are just get a reuse approach? The reuse approach could be quite secure short term, but is very a dangerous position longer term. Let me explain. If you are just, I would say, reusing the same specification or not changing your requirements, I would say the market is moving and the market will move somewhere else and you will stick at your, I would say, position in the past. And for sure, that will lead in 2 or 3 main difficulties for you. Competition will decrease because you will be with a very reduced, we will have a very reduced number of suppliers. The cost will increase because the competition will not be operative and effective. And of course, you will have a huge trouble in terms of maintenance or in terms of being able to provide the same level of services if you are still on the past position. That's the point. And you will not be very attractive as well, because I would say the big players and will have moved somewhere else. So if we want to be ambitious and if we want to have a high performance procurement results, we must be the player who makes the things change. And we must be the first at the next step, the next market organization, and make sure that we will be attractive like that. And then if we want to, if we have the ambition to be, I would say, a procurement organization to prepare the future for citizens, to make sure that we will have some resilient procurement to avoid or to resist to systemic shocks. If we want to face and tackle the societal challenges such as climate, environment, and biodiversity, we must change the paradigm. And if we want to, because and it's not if we want, we must also act for a better competitive European players. And for that, we must be the first. We must be the first adopter of the new solution and the new products or services. We have, to me, it's not a necessity. It's mandatory to be in that mindset. And if we want to move and make things move with us, I mean, how to do that, it's for the first step, that's the sourcing. That's for sure. And if you want to move to the next slide, if you don't mind, there is also, to me, I would say sourcing is a good opportunity to make the procurement officer position change. I do not want, at least for the French state, I do not want anymore the buyer being seen as the one who can conduct I would say the consultation process. We are not just a conductor of the process. We are not the one, or we are not only the one who placed the order or sign up the contract. We must be the partnership. We must be a business partner between the team inside our structures and the rest of the world, meaning I would say the supplier market and so on. And the buyer cannot be anymore a kind of isolated island. We must connect the world, and that basically, I would say, what is the evolution of the procurement position is to be the manager of the outsource resources. Meaning, I would say we have the power, and we have, when I say the power, that's our job, or that's basically, that will be our job, to be a kind of conductor of relationship between the structure inside and the outsider. And that's very important, because I would say the sourcing operation is also very beneficial for the suppliers. So if you want to switch to the next slide, please. There is also a large palette of advantages or benefits for suppliers. It's not only, I would say, for our own organization. And basically, I would say the benefits for suppliers is to make sure that their product and services will be adapted and will match with the buyer's requirement and the buyer's level of requirement. That's the first, to me, the first asset. The second one is to be able to adapt their products and services to the level we are requiring. And the third is to, it could be simple, but it's just to know that something will happen in terms of tendering process, and just to make sure and get ready and prepared to compete. And for me, I would say that's also a large, it's very beneficial for suppliers, that kind of market engagement, as it has been described earlier in the show. So there is benefit for us, procurement, short term. There is benefit for our countries, or I would say our society, generally speaking. And we have the power to make things change. And there is also a large palette of benefits for suppliers. So at least on these 3 points, sourcing and preliminary consultation is, to me, very important. If you can switch to the next slide. It has been introduced, and I'm completely online with that position. Innovation for the procurement activities and public procurement activities is no more an option. And if it is no more an option, that means that sourcing is not an option as well. Innovation without sourcing is, to me, a nonsense. So innovation means what? That mean we are a kind of change gamer, because we have plenty of money and to spend, and that gives us a huge power to make things change and to change the game. So innovation is to prepare the future, our common future, is to create value for countries, for Europe, and also for the next players, the future big players, and also it is very interesting, because innovation and sourcing is also to have fun and make, at least it's very energizing to meet startups or SMEs or whatsoever, or people who just want to change the world. There's a kind of energy which is very positive to embrace, and I think it's very well. So innovation for sure. So innovation without sourcing, it's a nonsense. Last slide, or coming to the end. Just to summarize, to me, I would say we are at the switching point, where I would say the procurement activities is not only conducting the consultation, preparing the consultation, to get the mitigation of the risk around the consultation, but also be a bridge between inside and outside. And of course, it requires time, it requires management engagement and agreement to spend time to go outside of the office. We need to have a kind of appetite for tech, for sure. We need to have that emphasis and that networks management ability, because I would say we are not alone and we cannot work alone on the sourcing activities. But by the way, to me, I would say that's what the procurement officer must be. We must be at the earliest stage in the decision process. We must lighten the option and prepare the choice. And we can and we must influence the decision for the higher impact for everyone. Not only, I would say, for the procurement activity by itself, but also, I would say, for the huge challenge of the society. And to me, I would say, if I just want to summarize in 3 words before switching to the last slide, we must be ambitious, we must be a game changer, and we must have fun. And that is the 3, to me, that's the 3 pillars of the preliminary consultation. So just a couple of tools which have been put in place and set to disposal to French buyers. So that has been introduced. I would say we have established and I would say released operational sourcing guide, which is quite very consistent and very interesting. For the time being, it is in French, but we are targeting to make it translate very soon, English at least. We are promoting as well, I would say, early calls for proposal, meaning I would say that's basically what has been explained by Josephine. Make sure that we can share what we are requesting, out what we are searching for at the earlier stage to make the suppliers market be prepared to answer to the consultation. The French buyers are all linked with the same IT procurement platform, and there is a sourcing database tools which has been integrated to that platform, giving a chance to the buyers to organize a very let's say short-term sourcing, just to invite newcomers to the next competition. The enough score as well has been put in place and providing. That's a kind of very simple tools, a kind of questionnaire where once it has been populated by the buyers, I would say, that give a trends on the innovation or not of what is targeting. I would say you got a color that's green, that's innovative, red, what go away, and that's yellow, that's in the middle. We have to discuss or maybe to work more. And we organize also a lot of meetup days, as Josephine just explained, just to make sure that we have time and I would say offline or online, I would say, make sure that we can explain and spend time with supplier just to explain what we are looking for the next months and coming years. So that's it for me. Looking forward to having your question and enjoy your sourcing phase.
Many thanks, Stephane. It was really interesting. You have touched so many relevant points from the strategic point of view and even the different roles of public procurement. Now, in our webinar, we have been seeing in the first presentation a presentation on the methodologies and tools. The second one very much on the strategic perspective. Now Mauro Drali will give us a presentation on the experience of Agit, and we will see the relevance of the very relevant experience put in practice by this agency, this Italian agency. Mauro, the floor is yours. We will be managing the slides.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to tell you something about our experience as innovation public procurement broker. During the presentation, we speak sometimes of about open market consultation. For the purpose of this webinar, it's the same as preliminary market consultation. Okay, go next, please. Where we are in this picture, I need to give you some information about the ecosystem where we are. The innovation procurement, innovation procurement is a cycle where many actors are involved. So starting at midday, we have a need coming from public entities. They are the solution seekers. And we need some money in order to satisfy this need. So investors, sponsors, usually public money is involved. And then at that point, we have to involve a contracting authority. So an entity that is in charge of the innovation procurement process, that is of the tender, of the formal process to award some companies that are the solution providers going on in this sort of clock. Initially, our ambition is to develop new solution through these solution providers coming from the market, from universities, academy, research centers, and so on. And the good solution that we can develop can be distributed in a more in large quantities to central purchasing bodies. Some member states have, several member states have central purchasing bodies. We have one in Italy that is called Concept. We have also regional purchasing bodies. And so the new solution can be put on the shelf of these purchasing bodies, and every public administration can buy and use it. And at the end of this cycle, policymakers can evaluate if this procurement cycle has been good, it was good, was effective, and take decision about a new round. Preliminary market consultation is more or less in the area in light blue. And so we can go to the next slide. Public consultation is, preliminary market consultation, sorry, is in the area where solution seekers, the contracting authority, the investors and the sponsor, and the solution providers, that means the market, meet together in order to discuss at a preliminary stage which are the goals and the possibility of solution for the need. At this point, I have to introduce the innovation procurement broker. Innovation procurement broker, because our experience and what I'm going to tell you in this brief presentation is in the field of innovation procurement brokerage. Our agency, that is a government agency in Italy, AGID, has two roles in this scenario. The role of a contracting authority, sometimes, and the role of an innovation procurement broker. The role of the innovation procurement broker is to make things happen. So our role is to run the clock so that process can arrive at the end in an effective way. And the preliminary market consultation is a relevant part of this process. One point is that we have stable connection and agreements with solution seekers, public investor, and community or association of solution providers, both coming from industry and coming from a university and research field. So we have a family of agreements in order to involve this community in each public consultation in an effective way. Next slide. This is the picture of the classical funnel of open innovation. We have 3 steps: shut our the need of the solution seekers in order to attract as many economical operators that are the yellow and blue points in the slides. Then we have to manage the funnel. We manage the funnel during the open market consultation and then during the tender. During the open market consultation, our goal is to attract economic operators into the funnel where they can discuss, they can arrive at the beginning of the process, they can also enter, going in and out of the funnel during the consultation process. The goal, in some way, is to prepare a tender where the economic operator already are aware of their capability to give a proper answer, a proper solution to the need of the public authorities. Next slide. Thank you. Tools. We use during a preliminary market consultation, whose duration is about, ranges from 3-4 months at the minimum, till sometimes 1 year. We use synchronous interaction tools, what we have called the dialogue event, and asynchronous interaction. We have, during one open market consultation, we can have 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4, 5 public conferences, dialogue events. The duration is 3-6 hours each. We are in presence, and in that case, we use also real-time streaming, sometimes WhatsApp-based interaction. Today we are using Slido. We haven't used during our preliminary consultation. Then we use what we call on-demand public one-to-one meetings. That means that one or more economic operators can ask us to have a one-to-one meeting. But this one-to-one meeting, in any case, is open to the public. According to our experience, we can have from 0 to 10 one-to-one meetings for each consultation. We confirm that we use the registration of participants to market consultation, and we submit an online survey in order to profile the participant. Then we have asynchronous tools. That means tools that are always online, they are public, and everybody can use these tools in order to better understand the consultation, the challenge, and so on. We have videos, something like 4 to 12 hours of video recording for each consultation. We have a dedicated website with a section for each challenge, usually a dedicated mailbox that is used by the economic operators to send us a written contribution. And we have a sort of Make Your Team tool. Make Your Team tool is a very simple tool where all the people that is registered to the consultation can be reached through mail. It is a public list, and so everybody can contact, people can contact each other in order to compose a team to participate in the tender. During the pandemic period, we have also used an advanced online conference tool that established a sort of avatar-based interaction. We have in the next slide just a picture in order to understand how we try to use online tools as in presence. We haven't reached the same performance as in presence conference, but in person conference. But you can see, this is a picture coming from the tool we used. We have a sort of building. This is a floor in the building. We can have many floors and tables. And each participant is a sort of avatar. Each participant can stay in a table and move in other tables looking for other people. They can establish video conference in the table. There is also, of course, a stage where representative from government and contracting authority make some speech that is dedicated to all the participants. Next slide. Okay, which is the concrete format. In presence, usually a dialogue event is a full day, 3 plus 3 hours, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. In the morning, it's more one way, that is we tell something about the rule of the game, presentation from the main stakeholders, the presentation of the need, and what is really relevant, storytelling by real users. So we can have people, public officers, teachers, according to the need, that tell to the people which is their day-by-day problem. And we use videos, photos in order to better explain the problem. In the afternoon, it's really interactive. We have pictures from startups and people that are in the room, wearing answering free interactions. Online, of course, 6 hours is too much. Usually we have 2 hours of presentation and interaction, plus 5 hours where people is free to connect each other and is attended. Then we used to have the tool open all the day, and people can interact in every way. People have public chat, but also private chat between participants. 3-6 events are needed for each preliminary market consultation. That means that when we are online, we need more events than in presence. Very relevant. All the material that is collected during this dialogue event is very, very relevant. We have to collect and we publish in the dedicated websites. Please go on. Thank you. Next slide. Two case study very quickly. Technologies for autism caregivers in 2017. Solution seekers were 65 small municipalities. We had something like 200 participants in a room in presence. The value was 4 million euro. What was relevant, my opinion, in that experience? The storytelling, testimonials from parents, the presence of influential speakers, specifically scientific and national authorities, and the fact that we have solved some conflicting position between economic operators, in that case especially between neuropsychiatrics community and the technologist community. And we arrived to write pieces of draft of the tender documents in a collaborative way in presence and in public. 45 small and medium enterprises and percent of small and medium enterprises startups, 16 large enterprise, 24% research and academy, 15% other, including non-government association, organization, and non-profit association. Next slide, because I'm short in time. Another case studies, 2020, 22 municipalities looking for new solution for smart mobility, 20 million euro from Ministry of Research plus, Ministry of Economic Development. We performed 6 online events in 6 months with 900 participants, with the participation of policymakers and government representatives. One-to-one meetings, yes, we had 4, during which we hosted 25 economic operators asking us for one-to-one meetings. A new thing, 6 webinars on this topic were organized by third parties, not by us. They contacted us in order to organize this webinar for their associated people, but open to the public. Okay. You can see the distribution of participants, 50% startups and small and medium enterprise. Next slide, please. This is a full view of 21 open market consultation from 2015 to today. With the number of participants, you can see that we had market consultation with very few participants, 10, 14. According to the topic, you can see the topic. Sometimes it was very tight, very specialized, and this is one of the cause of limited participation. Next slide. Some results. These are data coming from just three market consultations. And we can see the number of people in the funnel, the yellow-orange line, and outside the funnel. So you can see how the people outside the funnel that contacted us looked to be a large number, but people in the funnel, the yellow line, the orange line, was more had really more interaction with us. And the results are in the next slide. In fact, who presented an offer? 260 operators presented 68 offers. These are data coming from 3 vendors. 27% pass through all the funnel from the beginning of the consultation till to the end of the consultation. 36% teamed up with the previous 27%. 37% presented an offer without being in the funnel or without presenting together with some other operator in the funnel. Okay, next slide. I finished my presentation. Just an information, we are now starting a new program of innovation procurement that is called Smarter Italy. And the next slide is the final one. We have some information about this program. It's a program of about 100 million euro, where funded by Ministry of Economic Development, University Research, and the Ministry for Digital Transition, and where we are going to put in place the experience in market consultation and in innovation procurement that we had in time. Thank you very much for your attention, and Sorry if I'm a little bit delayed. Thank you.
Many thanks, Mauro. This experience is really impressive, and your presentation is very, very interesting, and I'm sure it's going to be, it was also interesting for our audience. It's now to pass to the most interactive part of the discussion, also with our audience. I just remind the participants that you can ask questions through Slido, and then we will read them. But just as to allow you to introduce questions and also to kick off this discussion, maybe I will start with a couple of questions. The first I want to ask is to Mauro. You were mentioning the one-to-one in the asynchronous, let's say, interaction. You were referring, if you got it right, about the publication of this interaction, of this meeting. And so the question is, how is confidentiality ensured?
Yes. We usually, not usually, we always say to all the economic operator that we don't like, as a contracting authority, to have confidential information. Because this is, we are in a preliminary open market consultation. So the general rule is that we have the right of publishing everything that is communicated to us. One-to-one meetings are performed in an open session, and everybody can attend this meeting, and the meeting is recorded. Sometimes we have some, in any case, we have some requests from companies to communicate us confidential information, and we evaluate case by case this possibility and we authorize the communication of this confidential information. But in any case, we have a public logbook on the website, and we communicate to the public that we have received some confidential information from that company.
Many thanks. Very, very clear. I have another question just before we take the floor and the opportunity for the audience to raise question. My question is to Stephane. Let's say that public procurement includes many different tasks as part of a procedure, which can be sometimes be considered as administrative. Now, when we're talking about the preliminary market consultation, which of course, as we all know, is optional, are we talking about a possible, another administrative task, or are we talking about something different? What is your view?
Well, that's a very interesting question. My position on that is that preliminary consultation is the most funniest timeline for the buyers. I mean, that's where I would say you are not, I would say, stick to any legal constraints or administrative procedures, and you are completely free to organize your time and make what you want to meet people and meet suppliers and meet new solutions and so on. And that's where I would say you must be very creative to go and search for the next players. That's where I would say you will go outside your office and you will be in the streets and you will be in exhibitions, and everywhere you can find something very interesting. So that's the opposite of the administration way of organizing, I would say, a public consultation. So that's a kind of fresh air, I guess.
Many thanks, Stephane. Very clear. I think that there is also a therapeutic value in preliminary market consultation from what I hear from you. We'll start with the questions from the audience. And my colleague Carmen Matei will be reading the questions that you have submitted to us. Carmen, the floor is yours.
The first question comes from David Rias. How to overcome the fear that some public buyers may have of providing competitive advantage to concrete suppliers if they talk to them before the procurement takes place? Are there any legal safeguards to avoid this situation? And since there is no addressee for this question, I'm going to turn to Josephine, maybe.
Thank you so much, Carmen, and thank you, David, for this very important question. Initial response to your question would be that in addition to publishing or talking about specific criteria during the consultation, you can also publish them openly so that they're freely available also for other suppliers to respond to. So in addition to have a dialogue event, you can also make an open survey where you disclose this information, the same as you would share at the event to be on the safe side. However, these preliminary market consultations, the kind of criteria or clauses that will be discussed, they are as well preliminary, right? It's not going to be the exact criterion, very likely, that will be put into the next tender. So on that side, I would encourage you to look at it from a process perspective again, and to also have in mind that a dialogue event, for instance, has to be published openly. So theoretically, each and every one who would be part of the pool of potential suppliers could participate and be made aware as well of the intentions for an upcoming procurement. Maybe Stephane or Mauro want to add to this?
Well, just to add a few words, I would say if we want to have a preliminary consultation, the most fruitful preliminary consultation, we have to open up, I would say, to a large audience. So that means that if we are conducting a sourcing operation quite clearly, there is no issue or no risk to, I would say, to close the door of any solution. To me, I would say the answer is in the question.
Well, my contribution is that public preliminary market consultation for innovative procurement should be fully open, but fully is fully okay. That means that the public authorities and the public officer has to establish a rule. Everything you are going to tell me is public, and will be published. So I understand that traditionally the public officer has some fear in having contacts with economic operator before tender. But in this case, we as public officer, we are not having contacts and relation with an economic operator, but with a full market together and in a public way. This is what we do every time, no more than this.
Thank you very much to all of you. I think it's very clear. One question from Anya. How do I reach all relevant market actors for my preliminary market consultations? Maybe Mauro, since you are on the screen.
Yes, hard to say. Our experience that we have some stable agreements with large communities of economic operators, something like 30,000 market operators through their association. But we put the information about the premium market consultation in public sites. We use social networks, and we perform direct information to these 30,000 associated people and companies, university, and academy. Sometimes we perform some specific research in order to understand which are specific company not to invite, but to inform. We do not invite nobody, no invitation to participate, just information without invitation. I understand that the difference is right, but there is a difference between invitation and information. So this is our approach.
Thank you, Mauro. Can I ask the other presenters to answer this question as well? Josephine, Stephane?
Sure, I think actually I would agree what Mauro was saying. It's vital to tap into existing networks. What we encourage buyers to do is to start out with a wish list, actually, to create a very simple list of all the suppliers and resellers they are aware of as well. But then to also do some research and perhaps exchange with other procurers of who is relevant, and to keep it very open. As well, and to spread the information in relevant networks. Yeah.
Yes, I would just advise that you are not alone, and you are, I would say, part of the constellation of buyers and public buyers in your country, I guess, but also in Europe. So, I mean, one of the good use to get is to ask questions to a buyers community, which is also a good way to have some very relevant information.
Thank you. Another question. How can the added value to citizens of public procurement's innovation be measured and made transparent to the final end users so that a concrete benefit can be perceived?
That's a very, very good question. And that's quite not easy to answer in a very short time, because we can debate for long. What is quite, I would say, what is quite sure is that if you are purchasing a real, consistent, innovative solution, the added value of that solution will be quite clear, I would say. If it's not clear, if you are not sure that you will provide an added value solution to citizen, to your organization, to the final end users, and so on, that's not a good innovative solution. I mean, that's something quite obvious, I would say. But how to measure that obvious, I would say obvious position, it's something very, very difficult. I do not have the answer right now.
I can only agree on what you were saying, that the beauty of innovation procurement, or also sustainable procurement, is that it should be very much problem driven. At the start of a procurement, normally from a public authority's perspective, creating public value should be oriented or based on a clear demand with the vision to solve a problem, to create solutions for public services to make them better. And so looking then at the outputs should really indicate and make very visible how this problem was then solved, or if it no longer exists, then of course there is some measurement that could be applied there. However, generally, I think within public procurement and the impact, for instance, of sustainable procurement, we are actually at a challenging point where we need to develop more tools on how to measure it. So to really work evidence-based, data-driven, and not only look at how do we prepare a procurement, how do we conduct a procurement, but what is actually the impact of that. So that will be my response.
I think that's an excellent answer. I don't know if Mauro wants to add something.
Just one thing, the problem coming from Alessio is concrete, at the point that sometimes we ask to the market to propose a measurement method as part of the solution to the challenge. That means that there is a first phase where in the offer, the solution includes also a proposal for measurement. And this proposal is evaluated. And in the second phase of the tender, probably the awarded solution will include also some point related to the measurement of the benefit for end users.
One question. When using preliminary market consultations, did you observe an increase in the number of bids in the public procurement procedures compared to procedures where not such consultations have been used? And maybe each of the presenters could give a short answer.
Sure, I can start off. I think this is a really interesting question, and it comes up very often. So thank you to Gabor for answering this. First and foremost, I think what will be the alternative? I think especially if we want to increase ambitions in an upcoming procurement, whether that is about creating new innovation or raising sustainability ambition, ideally both, not doing a market consultation and just putting these criteria and clauses into the tender documents would result in a very surprised market and likely less bids because of this surprise. However, by talking to the market about feasibility, we've seen in our experience that then the bids, they're more confident, and actually working with the market results, well, maybe in more bids, but I think here actually the most important point is into better quality of bids with regard to these aspects of innovation and sustainability, because they were prepared, because they were able to give their feedback. To give you a very quick example, when more and more in some public authorities, they want to not only have sustainable products, but to also look at how these products and services are being delivered. So changing the fleet of the suppliers is something that's coming, and where suppliers have indicated, sure, we can change our vehicle fleet. We actually also want to do that out of our corporate responsibility, but we want to do this in a phased approach. And this resulted in a really good amount of bids, but also in this kind of quality and feasibility of delivering on this.
Thank you. Stephane, Mauro?
Well, in our experience, yes. The answer is yes, but we do not have enough data to establish that this is a solid answer. But it looks yes.
I think I would say, I mean, what is important is not the number of bids when you are starting the tender, I would say, but the quality, as Josephine said, of the proposals you may have. And I don't know if you will have more or less number of candidates to your tender, but at least I'm quite sure that you will have several options to choose because I would say if you are conducting a preliminary market quite with a large audience I mean, the public way, you will have to choose different solution and not one single type of solution. If you are just, I would say, conducting a reuse consultation process. So, once again, I would say it's not the number which is important, it's the way you are opening, I would say, the possibilities and widen, I would say, the possibilities to have a new and even more performant solution at the end of the day.
Thank you. Since we are running out of time, this is the very last questions we are going to ask. So Suzanne mentioned some obstacles for suppliers in terms of disclosure of company secrets and expert knowledge, protection of IPRs. And suppliers may have reservations about disclosing this kind of information. How can this be regulated and treated confidentiality? Which are the incentives for suppliers to participate?
Maybe Stephane, you can start.
Try to start. Once again, not an easy question in a very short time to answer. You can put, I would say, in place some non-disclosure agreement, which is quite easy to do. What is important in your question is, and for the procurement, by the way, is not what is important is not the way the supplier will provide the solution. I mean, say the content of the solution. What is important for the preliminary market consultation is to know exactly what will be the level of expectation you can reach. So I would say we don't care about how, and we say the supplier will provide a solution and what is the solution, by the way. What is important is to know where we can go in terms of expectation. And for that, we do not need to go in detail and try to disclose any intellectual properties or confidential information.
If the other two speakers would like to add something, otherwise we will close.
I can just say that during the tender phase, almost every tender for innovation procurement includes a specific agreements, contract, where there are the rules, specific rule about the protection of background property and about the management of rights for the property, for the intellectual property of new intellectual property that is developed during the tender. So that's the point where this kind of topics are formally managed. During the public consultation, I agree. During the public consultation, company should not have the need of disclosing their secrets.
And if I may briefly answer to the second part of this question, the incentives for suppliers to participate. From our conversations with the participants from the supplier side, it's very apparent that for them, engaging in a preliminary market consultation helps them to also invest into the right direction and reduce their risk in terms of the business model, especially if we're talking about startup environments and kind of innovation labs as part of companies. So it's very reassuring to build this ideally longer term relationships with the public sector market. Yeah.
So many thanks to all of you and thanks for your participation. I would like first to thank our speakers because the presentation were very interesting, at least from our perspective on our side, looking at the different dimensions of the preliminary market consultation. I hope that also all the audience has enjoyed the webinar. As announced by Caterina in her introductory speech, this is the first webinar of a series of webinars on the innovation procurement, aiming at introducing and creating awareness and explaining the new innovation procurement guidance. The next one will be on the linking with the innovation ecosystem, and it's planned for the 16th of November. The other two planned are on IPRs and on risk management and will take place in beginning 2022. Also, I would like to say that we are also launching a series of webinars of lunch talks to the sister guidance, which is about buying social. And the first one will be on the 12th of October and will be about professional integration. But as you can see on the slides, a number of other topics will be covered in this cycle of webinars: human rights, due diligence, gender equality, accessibility, work conditions, all very relevant topics, sometimes also very closely related, which can be closely related to innovation procurement. We also have developed two brochures which are available on our website. They deal specifically with the innovation partnership and also with the choice of the relevant procedure for innovation procurement. They are so far available only in English, but they will be available in all languages around mid-October. We will also send them to all participants to today's webinar. Final thing, also we have two LinkedIn groups where we normally publish the information concerning our activities, events, and I would invite you to join them. We will also be sending short questionnaires to all of you to understand how you have appreciated this webinar, and also for us to improve the organization of any future event. We have also got some further questions. Unfortunately, time is running and we were not able to address all of them during today's webinar, but we will be answering to them with the help of our distinguished speakers in the next and coming days. And the final thing, as usual, we ask the participants to indicate how they have described in one word today's event, and we will show this into a word cloud, and this allows us also to get a quick overview on how today's event was appreciated by the audience. And to do this, as usual, we use Slido, which is our tool for interaction with you. I don't know if it's the technology which is low, but we don't see so many answers coming. Let's hope that you will start indicating them, because this is also the way for us to close and slowly phase out the event. So many thanks, and with this word cloud, which is always very positive for us, we thank you all. Let's thank again our speakers, and with this we close today's webinar. Many thanks.